Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and this is just a filler video since I don't have any new banknotes and I don't know what to even talk about, so I decided that I wanted to talk about the pesos. We're going to talk about the different kinds of peso currencies. Currently have like 5 different peso currencies with me. So I want to introduce to you first the Philippine Peso, which is the currency we use here in the Philippines. So these are the Philippine Pesos. So you can see I have a bunch of 50 peso notes and 100 peso notes. So in the Philippines we call our peso piso, which is basically the Philippinized version of peso. So since we were a former Spanish colony, we used the peso. So this is just one of the pesos that I knew before when I was a kid. So back then I thought that we were the only country to, use the peso, and then I found out that Mexico also uses the peso. Mexico was actually the very first country that I found out that uses the same name of our currency, which is the peso. So this is at least 90 pesos. I don't know what's the rate for this in Philippine pesos, but I'm guessing 90 Mexican pesos is a lot, as you can see. And when I grew up, I obviously, okay, no, it's not just Mexico that uses the pesos. There's also a bunch of other countries that uses the pesos. We have Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Uruguay. Now I have 2 currencies here that I don't have, and that's Cuba and República Dominicana. So those are the 2 countries that I don't have banknotes from, but hopefully I get some from them soon, especially Cuba, because you know how isolated Cuba is sometimes, and the embargo that the US is imposing on them. So yeah, so I want to talk about the peso and the history of the peso, and I'm going to include the Philippine peso in here as well. So the word peso came from Spanish, obviously. It means weight. Historically, the famous Spanish silver coin, the peso de ocho, meaning piece of 8, became one of the world's first global currencies. Many countries, including Mexico, our country, the Philippines, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and others kept the name peso after independence. Now, if you don't know, Spain actually used to have a currency before the euro, and that's very obvious. And in Spain, they didn't call them peso, they called them pesetas. Now peseta is actually related to the peso, but it is a smaller form of peso, which is like if you have dollars, then there's cents, or if you have a peso, there's a centavo. Now what does peseta actually mean? Well, like I said earlier, it was like the small denomination or subunit of the peso, and it originally meant something like little peso or small piece. Now it was only used in parts of Spain for small denomination, because again, small peso, little peso, until it became Spain's official currency in 1868. So by then, peseta had been always used, and Spain didn't switch it back to the peso. So even though Spain used the peseta until 2002, the name peseta is actually related to pesos. Now, I want to show you guys something. So this is the Philippine peso sign. We have our own peso sign here, but if we look here at this Uruguayan peso, here this 20 Uruguayan peso. If we look closer here, what's that? That's the dollar sign, right? No, that's actually the peso sign. So this is the peso sign. You may have known it as the dollar sign, but it actually started off as the peso sign. So why was this dollar sign also used for the peso? So during, the Spanish Empire, the Spanish peso, also called the Spanish dollar or piece of 8, was one of the world's most widely traded coins, circulated throughout Europe, the Americas, even here in the Philippines and in the early United States. So the reason why this started getting used in the first place for peso is because they wanted a quick way to write the currency itself, the peso. So instead of making it as PS, they just combined it until the curve of the P just disappeared, and now just became this straight line over here with the S. Now, it is believed that the symbol have evolved from the abbreviation for the Spanish peso, and later became associated with the United States dollar, because the United States used Spanish coins extensively before it minted enough of its own coins. Which is why both dollars and pesos, mostly in Latin America, uses this sign. It's because, they're related. But meanwhile, here in the Philippines, that never went through. We made our own peso sign because I think when we became independent after that, the peso sign in Latin America was, it was widely associated with the American dollar sign. So we decided to make our own peso sign. So obviously, we just took a P and then we put 2 strokes of lines in it, and then we finally got the peso sign. So yeah, anyways, that's the whole video for now. Before I end this video, I wanna go through some of my peso currency banknotes. I wanna show you guys all of these before I end the video. So here are my Mexican pesos. So I've got this 20 peso note. I've got this back in 2024. I don't know, I forgot how much this cost me, but I believe it was 200 pesos or 100 pesos. And another 20 pesos here. So this one, you saw a video of this. I bought this recently from the convention. And this 50 Mexican peso banknote, which I bought last year. So now the only peso denomination from Mexico that I want to get is the 100 pesos. I think I wanted to get the current one. I also want to get the ones from this series, I want to get the one with the 50 peso butterfly, the one with the butterfly window, and then the 100 pesos as well. One for these, 3 for these series, and 3 for these series. It looks like I'm almost going to complete this. I just need to find the 100 peso note. But this one, I don't think I'm even halfway. So I have at least 90 pesos with me, and that's it. Up next is this 1000 peso banknote from Chile. So this is the only thing I have from Chile so far. 1000 pesos. This is the smallest denomination note they have in Chile. So I don't know how much this is in Philippine pesos. I think it's just 64 pesos or something. But in some of these countries, the hyperinflation is really bad. But either way, even though the hyperinflation is bad, they make beautiful banknotes over there. Then up next is another country affected by hyperinflation. This is Colombia. So I have 20,000 pesos from Colombia. And I also bought this from the recently concluded convention. So you can see here that it says 20, but if you read it carefully, it says 20,000 pesos, which means 20,000, 20,000. As I explained in my last video, this could be some sort of psychological trick thing. Maybe not, maybe yes, but if, I don't know, if whatever's the case, please explain it to me below in the comments. Up next are these Argentine pesos. Half of these banknotes are actually obsolete now because Argentina is once again falling into another hyperinflation. But I have here 2 peso note, 10 peso note, 20 peso note, 50 peso note, 100 peso note, and another 100 peso note. This is one of my favorite Argentine banknotes. And I got this back in 2023, so this is like 3 years old now, 4 years old. Lastly, Uruguay, featured this earlier. I originally wanted to get the polymer version of this, but I got a paper version instead. But maybe when I do get the polymer version, I won't throw this away because, it's like the original version of it. Now I mentioned that there's only 2 peso currencies that I haven't got yet. Out of the 8 peso currencies, I only have 6 of them, which includes the Philippine Peso. 2 of those that I haven't mentioned, I think, is the Dominican Peso and the Cuban Peso. Now, Dominican Peso, I mostly wanted to get their 20 peso note, their polymer 20 peso note, and Cuban Peso, I wanted to get the high denomination banknotes, but actually, I was looking at the exchange rate of the Cuban Peso, and they're quite strong, for an economy that has, like, embargo or where trade is blocked by the United States. The currency is quite strong. So yeah, honestly, I don't know which denomination I want to get in Cuba, but in Dominican Republic, I guess I want to get their newer banknotes, their newer paper banknotes. For some reason they stopped production of that 20 peso banknote, and with the new design it's reverted back to paper. Now there are obviously a lot of countries in South America, or in Latin America to be exact, and most of these countries don't even use the peso anymore. They have dropped them in favor of a new currency. I know some of them, and I'm going to list them down right now, and this is actually some of the currencies that I've wanted to get. So Bolivia has been using the Bolivian Boliviano. Absolutely beautiful banknotes, by the way. I want to get that someday. Costa Rica has been using the Costa Rica Colon, which is interestingly named after Christopher Columbus. And I have a 1000 Costa Rican colones. Ecuador dropped the Ecuadorian peso and has been using the United States dollar since 1884. El Salvador has dropped the El Salvadorian peso, and I believe they also use the El Salvadorian colon, but they also dropped it in favor of the United States dollar. So yeah. Now there's like 2 countries here that are outside of Latin America, but maybe we'll mention that later. Guatemala dropped the Guatemalan peso in favor of the Guatemalan quetzal, which is the name of their national bird, the quetzal. Honduras dropped their Honduran peso in favor of the lempira. Nicaragua dropped the peso in favor of Cordoba. Paraguay dropped the peso in favor of the Guarani. Peru dropped the peso in favor of the sol. Puerto Rico, obviously annexed by the United States, had to drop it because they were gonna use the dollar. And Venezuela, they dropped the peso in favor of the Bolivar, which is named after Simón Bolívar. Now the 2 countries outside of Latin America that used to have the peso is Equatorial Guinea. They used to have the Equatorial Guinean peso, but it was replaced by the Central African franc, which is also one of the currencies that I want to get. And Guinea-Bissau, which interestingly speaks Portuguese, but they used to have the Guinea-Bissau peso until they dropped it in favor of the West African franc, which is also another currency that I wanted to get. So yeah, that's the video for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys learned something new, and I hope that you appreciate the pesos even more. And maybe in the next video we'd be talking about the dollars, the pounds, the francs, or whatever currencies out there. So to any Latin American viewers watching this video, gracias, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.